Hi, everybody. This is Barbara Three Crow with Unraveling the Mystery. It's May 31st. We're at the end of May. That went fast. I'm talking to you from Turtle Island here about 100 miles north of the tip of Turtle Island, which people call Manhattan today. I'm living here in the Catskills with the great Mahicanituk, the river that flows both ways, called the Hudson River by that so-called discoverer. And I think we know him pretty much now that our history is pretty whacked and not what we were told and so on and so forth. So I'm kind of being snarky here about, Hudson, Henry Hudson and Columbus and all those people who supposedly discovered this great turtle island. And I started last week Vladimir Megi's book, Anastasia, The Ringing Cedars, from a request by Zeitz, our down under dear friend, our brother. And I started it, and I think it's quite fascinating and interesting and mysterious. And in some of the information, the author says, think of Star Trek meets the Bible. And there's lots of information in here, rights of love, the energy of life, who are we, and the new civilization, and there's a lot more. I left off last week where the author had made a journey into the taiga, the great forest there in Russia, and he met this mysterious young woman, and I left off where they were sort of having fun in the forest, and she was putting on a performance. And I'm going to continue where I left off. Apparently, she was impersonating this very famous, I guess she's an opera singer in Russia, Alla Pugacheva, her name was. And so here the author begins. No sooner had Anastasia made her entrance from behind her improvised curtain than she launched into the authentic voice of Alla Pugacheva. No, it wasn't just a parody or an imitation, but Alla herself, effortlessly conveying not only her voice. Anastasia created Alla's intonations and even her emotions. But an even more amazing feature was to come. Anastasia accentuated particular words, adding something of her own, infusing the song with her own supplemental attenuations, so that Alla Pugacheva's own performance, which before it seemed nobody else could even begin to surpass, now called forth a whole new range of additional feelings, illuminating the images even more clearly, and in a magnificently executed overall performance of this song. Once lived an artist alone, canvases all through his home. He loved an actress, he thought. Flowers were her love, fresh grown. He went and sold his big home, sold every canvas that he owned, and with the money he bought whole fields of flowers, fresh grown. Anastasia put particular emphasis on the word canvas. As a matter of fact, she screamed out this word in fright and surprise. A canvas is an artist's most prized possession. Without it, he can no longer create. And here he is giving up the most precious thing that he owns for the sake of his loved one. Later, as she sang the words, "Then she went off on the train," Anastasia tenderly portrayed the artist in love, looking longingly after the departing train, which was carrying off his loved one forever. She portrayed his pain. She portrayed his despair, her perplexed state of mind. I was too shaken by everything I had seen and heard to applaud at the end of the song. But Anastasia bowed, anticipating my applause, and hearing none, launched into a new song with even more enthusiasm. She performed all of my favorite songs in the same order that they had been recorded on my videotape, and every single song, which I had heard so many times before, was now even clearer and more meaningful with Anastasia's rendition. Upon completing the last song on the tape, still hearing no applause, Anastasia retreated backstage. Too dumbfounded to speak, I remained seated in silence and still feeling an extraordinary impression from what I had just witnessed. But then I jumped up, began applauding, and cried, "Terrific, Anastasia! Encore! Bravo! All performers on stage!" And Anastasia gingerly stepped forth and gave a bow. And I kept on shouting, "Bravo! Bravo!" clapping my hands and stamping my feet. And she too livened up. She clapped her hands and cried, "Encore! Does that mean again?" "Yes, again and again and again! You did it so marvelously, Anastasia. Better than the singers themselves. Even better than our top stars." I fell silent and began attentively studying Anastasia. I thought how multifaceted her soul must be if she could infuse her single performance with so many new, splendid, clear features. She too stood motionless, silently, and inquiringly looking at me. "Anastasia, do you have any song of your own? Couldn't you sing something of your own, something I haven't heard before?" "I could, but my song does not have any words. Would you still like to hear it?" "Please sing your song." "Fine," Anastasia said, and she started in singing a most unusual song. She screamed like a newborn baby, and then her voice started sounding quieter, tender, and caressing. She stood beneath a tree, her hands clasped to her breast, and her head bowed. It was like a lullaby, gently caressing a little one with her voice. Her voice spoke to him of something very tender. Her soft voice, amazingly pure, caused everything around us to grow silent. The birds singing, the chirping of the crickets in the grass. And at this point Anastasia seemed to take absolute delight in the little one waking from sleep. The sound of rejoicing could be heard in her voice. The incredibly high-pitched sound soared above the earth before taking flight into the heights of infinity. Anastasia's voice first pleaded and then went into battle and once again caressed the little one and bestowed joy upon everything around us. I too felt this all-pervading sense of joy, and when she finished her song, I joyfully exclaimed, "And now, my dear ladies and gentlemen, a unique and never-to-be-repeated number by the top animal trainer in the world. The most agile, brave, charming trainer, capable of taming any beast of prey on earth. Behold and tremble." Anastasia positively squealed with delight. She leapt into the air, clapped her hands in rhythm, and shouted something, starting in whistling, something I could never have imagined being taking place in this great forest. First, the she-wolf made her entrance. She leapt out of the bushes and stopped at the edge of the glade, giving a puzzled look around. In the trees furthest from the glade, squirrels sprang from branch to branch, and then 2 eagles circled low overhead, while little creatures of some kind rustled in the bushes. With the sharp crackle of dry twigs as he broke and crushed the bushes, a huge bear lumbered out into the glade and then stopped, as though embedded in the ground, just short of Anastasia. The wolf began growling at him disapprovingly, since the bear had approached so close to Anastasia without an invitation. Anastasia ran up to the bear, playfully stroking his muzzle, then grabbed him by his front paws, and she stood him upright. Judging by the fact that she didn't seem to be exerting much physical effort in this, the bear himself must have been carrying out her commands according to how much he understood and how he interpreted them. The bear stood stock still, trying to understand what was desired of him. Anastasia took a running leap, and grabbing hold of the thick scruff of the bear's neck, she did a handstand on his shoulders, jumping off again with a somersault on her way down. Then she took the bear by one paw and started to bend over, pulling the bear after her, creating the impression that she was tossing him over her shoulder. This trick would have been impossible if the bear had not been able to do it himself. Anastasia simply guided him. It looked at first as though the bear was going to fall on Anastasia, but at the last moment he reached out a paw to the ground and broke his fall. He was no doubt doing everything he could not to harm his mistress or his friend. In the meantime, the wolf was becoming more and more concerned. She was already standing at the place of the action, thrashing from side to side, growling or howling with displeasure. At the edge of the glade there appeared several more wolves, and when Anastasia was on the point of yet another routine toss of the bear over her shoulder, the bear, attempting to do the trick properly, fell over on his side and remained motionless. At last the wolf, now at her wits' end, and with a malicious grin, made a leap in the bear's direction. With lightning speed, Anastasia placed herself in the wolf's path. The wolf braked with all fours, somersaulted over her back, bumping into Anastasia's leg. Immediately, Anastasia put one hand on the back of the wolf, who obediently crouched to the ground. With her other hand she began waving as she had done that first time with me, when I had tried to embrace her without her consent. The forest around us began to make a rustling sound, not threateningly, but with some agitation. The agitation was felt as well in all the big and little creatures jumping, running, and hiding. Anastasia began taking away the agitation. First, she stroked the wolf, slapped her on the back, and sent her off out of the glade as though she were a pet dog. The bear was still lying on his side in an uncomfortable pose, like a fallen scarecrow. He was probably waiting to see what else was required of him. Anastasia went over to him, made him stand up, stroked his muzzle, and sent him out of the glade like the wolf. Anastasia, blushing and cheerful, ran over and sat down beside me. She breathed in deeply and slowly exhaled. I noticed that her breathing all at once became even, as though she hadn't been carrying out any extraordinary exercises at all. They do not understand play acting, and they ought not to. It is not entirely a good thing, Anastasia remarked. Then she asked me, "Well, how was it? Do you think I could find any kind of work in your life?" "You're terrific, Anastasia, but we already have all that, and our circus trainers show us a lot of interesting tricks with animals. But you don't have a hope of breaking through all the red tape to even get started. There are so many formalities and machinations to deal with. You don't have any experience in that." The remainder of our play consisted in going over possible alternatives. Where could Anastasia get a job in our world, and how would she overcome the formalities in the way? But no easy alternative presented itself, since Anastasia had neither a residence permit nor proof of education, and nobody would believe the stories about her origins on the basis of her abilities, no matter how extraordinary they might be. Suddenly, turning serious, Anastasia said, "Of course, I would like to visit one of the big cities again, maybe Moscow, to see how accurate I was in visualizing certain situations from your life. For one thing, I am at a complete loss to understand how the dark forces manage to fool women to such a degree that they unwittingly attract men with the charms of their bodies and thereby deprive them of the opportunity of making a real choice, to choose someone close to their heart. And then they themselves suffer for not being able to create a real family." And once again she launched into deep and poignant discussions about sex, family, and the upbringing of children. And I could only think, the most incredible thing in all I have seen and heard is her ability to talk about our lifestyle and understand it in such specific detail. And this is chapter 9. Who lights a new star? On the second night, fearing that Anastasia would once again assign me her she-bear or concoct up some new device to keep me warm, I categorically refused to go to sleep at all unless she herself lay down beside me. I thought that as long as she was beside me, she wouldn't be up to any tricks, and I told her, "You've invited me as a guest, I take it, in your home. I imagined there would be at least a few buildings here, but you won't even let me light a fire, and you offer me a beastie to keep me company at night. If you don't have a normal home, what's the point of inviting a guest?" "All right, Vladimir. Do not worry, please. Do not be afraid. Nothing bad is going to happen to you. If you want, I shall lie down beside you and keep you warm." This time in the dugout cave there were even more cedar branches strewn around, along with neatly arranged dry grasses, and there were also branches stuck on the wall. I got undressed. I put my sweater and trousers under my head for a pillow. I lay down and covered myself with my jacket. The cedar twigs gave off that same bacteria-killing aroma described in the popular literature as capable of purifying the air. Though here in the taiga the air is already so pure, the air in the cave was particularly easy to breathe. The dried grasses and flowers contributed a still more unusual, delicate fragrance. Anastasia kept her word, and she lay down beside me. I sensed the fragrance of her body, which surpassed all other odors. It was more pleasant than most delicate perfume I had ever sensed from a woman's body. But now I had no thought of wanting to possess her. After my attempt to do so on the way to the glade, which had resulted at the time in an attack of fear and also loss of consciousness, I no longer felt aroused by fleshly desire, even when I saw her naked. I lay down and dreamt of the son my wife never bore to me, and I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if my son could be born by Anastasia? She is so healthy, beautiful, and sturdy. The child then, too, would be healthy, and he would look like me, like her, too, but more like me. He would be a strong and clever individual. He would know a lot, and he would become talented, and he would prosper. I imagined our infant son sucking at his mother's nipple, and involuntarily put my hand on Anastasia's warm, supple breast. Immediately, a shiver ran through my whole body and then dissipated at once. But it wasn't a shiver of fear. It was something else, extraordinarily pleasing. I didn't take my hand away, but only held my breath and waited for what might happen. Next thing I noticed was the feeling of the soft palm of her hand on mine. She did not push me away. I raised my head and began looking into Anastasia's marvelous face. The white twilight of the northern night made it seem even more attractive. I couldn't take my gaze off of her. Her grayish blue eyes looked at me tenderly. I didn't restrain myself, but bent closer and quickly and carefully, with just the slightest touch, planted a kiss on her half-open lips. Once more a pleasing shiver ran through my body. My face was enshrouded with the fragrance of her breath. Her lips didn't utter, as the last time, "Do not do this," and "calm down." And I had no fear at all. I was still haunted by the prospect of a son, and when Anastasia tenderly embraced me, stroked my hair, and gave her whole body to me, I felt something indescribable. Only upon waking in the morning was I able to realize that this kind of magnificent feeling, blissful excitement and satisfaction, was something I had never once experienced in my entire life. Another peculiar thing, after a night spent with a woman, I had always felt a sense of physical fatigue, but here everything was different. In addition, I had the feelings of some kind of great co-creation. My satisfaction wasn't just something physical, but had another dimension I couldn't quite comprehend, one I had never experienced before, extraordinarily lovely and joyful. The thought even flashed through my mind that life was worth living just for this feeling alone. And why had I never experienced anything that even came close to this before, even though there had been all sorts of women, beautiful women, beloved women, women experienced in love? Anastasia was a girl, a tender, quivering girl, but beyond that, there was something in her that belonged not to a single woman I had known. What was it? And where had she gone now? I made my way over to the entrance of the cozy dugout cave. I poked my head out and looked out into the glade. The glade was situated at a slightly lower level than my nighttime resting place. It was covered by a layer of morning mist, a half-meter thick, and in this mist I could see Anastasia spinning around with her outstretched arms. A little cloud of mist was forming about her, and when it covered her completely, Anastasia sprang easily into the air, stretched out her legs in a split just like a ballerina, and flew over the layer of mist. She landed in a different spot, and once more laughing, spun a new cloud around her, through which could be seen the rays of the rising sun that were gently caressing her body. It was a charming and delightful scene, and I cried out with an overflow of emotion, "Anastasia! Good morning, my splendid forest fairy, Anastasia!" "Good morning, Vladimir," she joyfully called out in response. "It's so delightful, so wonderful out right now." "Why is that?" I cried as loud as I could. Anastasia lifted up her hands toward the sun and began laughing with that happy, alluring laugh of hers, calling out to me and someone else besides high above in a sing-song voice. Out of all the creatures in the universe, only man is given an experience like that. Only men and women sincerely desiring to have a child between them. Only man having such an experience lights a new star in the heavens. Only man striving for creation and co-creation. Thank you. And addressing me alone, she quickly added, only man striving for creation and co-creation and not for satisfaction of his carnal needs. And again she went off in trills of laughter and leapt high into the air, stretched her legs into a split as though soaring over the mist. And then she came running over. She sat down beside me at the entrance to our nighttime resting place, and she began combing her golden tresses with her fingers, lifting them up from the bottom. So you don't consider sex to be something sinful? I asked. Anastasia fell silent. She looked at me in amazement and responded, was that the same kind of sex the world implies in your world? And if not, then what is more sinful, to give of yourself so that a man can come into the world, or to hold back and not allow a man to be born, a real man? I started thinking. In actual fact, my nighttime closeness with Anastasia could not possibly be described by our usual word, sex. Then what did happen last night? What term would be appropriate here? And again I asked. And why did everything even approaching that experience never happen with me before, or, for that matter, I would venture to say, with hardly anybody else in the world? You see, Vladimir, the dark forces are constantly trying to make man give in to base, fleshly passions, to stop him from experiencing God-given grace. They try all sorts of tricks to persuade people that satisfaction is something you can easily obtain, thinking only of carnal desire, and at the same time they separate man from truth. The poor deceived women who are ignorant of this spend their lives accepting nothing but suffering and searching for the grace they have lost. But they are searching for it in the wrong places. No woman can restrain a man from fornication if she allows herself to submit to him merely to satisfy his carnal needs. If that has happened, their marital life will not be a happy one. Their marital life is only an illusion of togetherness. It is a lie, a deception, accepted by convention. For the woman immediately becomes a fornicator, regardless of whether she is married to the man or not. Oh, how many laws and conventions mankind has invented in an attempt to artificially strengthen this false union. Laws both religious and secular, all in vain. All they have done is caused people to play around, accommodate themselves, and imagine that such a union exists. One's innermost thoughts invariably remain unchanged, subject to nobody and nothing. Christ Jesus saw this, and trying to counteract it, he said, "Anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his own heart." Then you, in your not-so-distant past, have tried to attach shame to anyone who leaves his family. But nothing at any time or in any situation has been able to stop man's desire to seek out that sense of intuitively felt grace, the greatest satisfaction, and to persist in seeking it. A false union is a frightening thing. Children, do you see, Vladimir? Children, they sense the artificiality. They know the falsity of such a union. And this makes them skeptical about everything that their parents tell them. Children subconsciously sense the lie even during their conception, and that has a bad effect upon them. Tell me what individual would want to come into the world as a result of carnal pleasures alone? We would all like to be created under a great impulsion of love, the aspiration to creation itself, and not simply come into the world as a result of someone's carnal pleasure. People who have come into a false union will then look for true satisfaction in secret, apart from each other. They will strive to possess body after body, or make paltry and fateful use of their own bodies, realizing only intuitively that they are drifting farther and farther away from the true happiness of a true union. Anastasia, wait, I said. Can it be that men and women are doomed this way if the first time all that happens between them is sex? Is there no turning back, no possibility of correcting this situation? There is. I now know what to do. But where do I find the right words to express it? I am looking, always looking for them, the right words. I have been looking for them in the past and in the future, but I have not found them. Perhaps they are right in front of me after all, and then they will appear. New words will be born, words capable of reaching people's hearts and their minds, new words for the ancient truth about their primal origins. Don't panic, Anastasia. Use existing words to start with, just as an approximation. What else is needed for true satisfaction apart from two bodies? Complete awareness, a mutual striving to create sincerity and purity of motive. How do you know all this, Anastasia? I am not the only one who knows about it. A number of enlightened people have tried to explain it to the world. Krishna, Shiva, Christ, Muhammad, Buddha, Rama. You've, read about all these people? Where? When? I have not read about them. I simply know what they said, what they thought about, what they wanted to accomplish. So sex by itself, according to you, is bad? Very bad. It leads man away from truth. It destroys families. An enormous amount of energy is wasted. Then why do so many different magazines publish pictures of naked women in erotic poses? Why are there so many films with erotica and sex? And all of this is extremely popular. Demand generates supply, so you're trying to say that our humanity is completely bad? Humanity is not bad, but the devices of the forces obscuring spirituality by provoking basic carnal desires, these are very powerful devices. They bring people grief and suffering. They act through women, exploiting their beauty, a beauty whose real purpose is to engender and support in men the spirit of the poet, the artist, the creator. But to do that, women themselves must be pure. If there is not sufficient purity, they start trying to attract men by fleshly charms, the outward beauty of empty vessels. In the upshot, the men are deceived, and the women must suffer their whole lives on account of this deception. So what then is the result? I asked. Through all the millennia of their existence, mankind has not been able to overcome these devices of the dark forces. That would mean they are stronger than man. Man hasn't been able to overcome them in spite of the appeals by spiritually enlightened people, as you put it. So is it downright impossible to overcome them, or maybe it's not necessary? It is necessary, absolutely necessary. Who then can do it? Women. Women who have been able to grasp the truth and their own appointed purpose. And then the men will change too. Oh no, Anastasia, I doubt it. A normal man will always be aroused by a pretty woman's legs, her breasts, especially when you're on a business trip or on a holiday far away from your partner. That's the way things are. And nobody here will change anything. They won't do it any other way. But I did it with you. What did you do? Now you are no longer able to indulge in that harmful sex. All at once, a terrible thought hit me like a flood and started chasing away the magnificent feeling that had been born in me during the night. What have you done, Anastasia? What? I'm now impotent? On the contrary, you have now become a real man. Only the usual sex will be repugnant to you. It does not bring what you experienced last night, and what you experienced last night is possible only when you desire to have a child and the woman wants the same from you. In other words, when she loves you. Loves? But under those conditions, that can happen only a few times during one's whole life. I assure you, Vladimir, that is enough for your whole life to be happy. You will feel the same way eventually. People enter many times afresh into sexual interaction only through the flesh, not realizing that true satisfaction in the flesh is impossible to attain. A man and a woman who unite on every plane of existence, impelled by radiant inspiration, earnestly aspiring to the act of creation, experience tremendous satisfaction. The Creator gave this experience to humans alone. No transitory thing, this satisfaction, no, it never can compare with fleeting, fleshly gratification. As you cherish the feeling from it over time, all planes of being will, with influence sublime, happify your life, and the woman too. A woman who can give birth to a creation in the Creator's own image and likeness. Anastasia held out her hand toward me, trying to move closer. I quickly darted away from her into a corner of the cave, and I cried, "Out of my way!" She got up. I crawled outside and backed off from her a few steps. "You have deprived me, quite possibly, of my chief pleasure in life. Everybody strives for it. Everybody thinks about it. Only they don't talk about it out loud." They are illusions, Vladimir, these pleasures of yours. I have helped save you from a terrible, harmful, and sinful appetite. Illusion or not,
doesn't make any difference. It's a pleasure recognized by everyone. Don't even think of trying to save me from any other harmful appetites as you see them, or by the time I get out of here, I'll be no relations with women, no drinks or appetizers, no smoking. That's not something most people are used to in normal life. Well, what good is there in drinking, smoking, senseless and harmful digestion of such a huge quantity of animal meat? There are so many splendid plants created especially for humans' nourishment. Well, you go and feed yourself with plants if you like, but don't come near me. A lot of us get pleasure out of smoking, drinking, and sitting down to a good meal. That's how we do things. Do you understand? That's how we do things. But everything you name is bad and harmful. Bad? Harmful? If guests come to celebrate at my place and they sit down at the table and I tell them, here are some nuts to gnaw on, have an apple, drink water, and don't smoke, now that would be bad. Is that the most important thing when you get together with friends? To sit right down at the table and drink, eat, and smoke? Whether it's the most important thing or not is beside the point. That's how people behave all over the world. Some countries even have ritual dishes, roast turkey, for example. That is not accepted by everyone, even in your world. Well, maybe not by everyone, but I happen to live among normal people. Why do you consider the people around you to be the most normal? Because they're in the majority. Vladimir, that is not a good enough argument. It's not good enough for you because it's something impossible to explain to you. My anger at Anastasia began to pass. I recalled hearing about medical prescriptions and sex therapists, and the thought came to me that if she had somehow injured me, the doctors would be able to fix it. I said, okay, Anastasia, let's make peace. I'm no longer angry at you. I thank you for the wonderful night. Only don't you try saving me from any more of my habits. And as far as sex goes, I'll fix the situation with the help of our doctors and modern medicines. Let's go for a swim. I began heading for the lake, admiring the morning woods. Just as my good mood was beginning to come back, well, there you go again. Walking beside me, behind me, she piped up, medicines and doctors will not help you now. To put everything back the way it was, they will have to erase your memory of everything that happened and everything you felt. Stunned, I stopped in my tracks. Then you put everything back the way it was. I cannot. Again, I was overwhelmed by a feeling of rampant rage and at the same time, fear. You brazen, you poke your nose in where it doesn't belong and turn my life upside down. So you played a nasty trick on me, and now you say you can't fix it? I did not play any nasty tricks. After all, you wanted a son so badly. But so many years had gone by, and you still did not have a son, and none of the women in your life could bear you a son. I also wanted a child by you, a son, too. And that is something I can do. And why are you getting so concerned ahead of time that things are going to go badly for you? Maybe you'll still come to understand. Please, do not be afraid of me, Vladimir. I am certainly not trying to meddle with your mind. This happened all on its own, and you got what you wanted. And I would still very much like to save you from at least one mortal sin. And what's that? Pride. You're a funny one. Your philosophy and lifestyle aren't human. What do you find in me? so inhuman that it frightens you. You live all alone in the forest and communicate with plants and animals. Nobody in our society even comes close to that kind of life. How can that be, Vladimir? Why? Anastasia explained. Flustered, you're Dachniks. They too communicate with plants and animals. Only not consciously. But they will understand one day. Many have already begun to understand. Oh, come on. Now she's a Dachnik? And this Ray of yours, you know a lot, but you don't read books. You must be some kind of mystic. I shall try to explain everything to you, Vladimir, only not all at once. I am trying, but I cannot find the right words. Comprehensible words. Please believe me. All my abilities are inherent in humans. It is something humans was given right from the start, back in the days of their primal origins. And everyone could do the same today. Nevertheless, people are starting to go back to their primal origins. It will be a gradual process after the forces of light triumph. What about your concert? You sang in all sorts of different voices. You portrayed my favorite artists, and even in the same order as on my videotape. Yes, that is true, Vladimir. You know I once saw the tape of yours. I shall tell you later how that happened. And what, you right off memorized the words and tunes of all the songs? Yes, I memorized them. What is so complex or mystical about that? Oh, dear, what have I gone and done? I have talked too much. I have shown too much. I am muddle-headed and tactless. My grandfather once called me that. I thought he was just being affectionate, but in fact, I probably am tactless. Please, Vladimir. Anastasia's voice betrayed a very human concern, and this was probably the reason that almost all of my fear of her had now left. My whole feelings were preoccupied with the prospect of a son. Okay, I'm no longer afraid, only please try to be a bit more restrained. Remember your grandfather told you that. Yes, and grandfather. But here I am talking and talking. I have such a strong desire to tell you everything. Am I a chatterbox? Yes, but I shall try. I shall try very hard to restrain myself. I shall try to speak only in terms that you will understand. So you'll soon be giving birth, Anastasia? I said. Of course, only it will not be on time. What do you mean, it will not be on time? Ideally, it should be in the summertime when nature can help with the nurturing. Why did you make that decision if it's too risky for you and the child? Do not worry, Vladimir. At least our son will live. And you? And I shall try to hold on till the spring, and everything will adjust itself then. Anastasia said this without a tinge of sorrow or fear for her life. And then she ran off and jumped into the little lake. The spray of the water in the sunlight took flight, just like fireworks, and landed on the smooth, mirror-like surface of the water. And some 30 seconds later, her body slowly began to break the surface. She lay, as it were, on the water, her arms wide spread, her palms upturned, and smiled. I stood on the shore, looked at her, and thought to myself, will the squirrel hear the snap of her fingers when she lies with her baby in one of her shelters? Will she get help from any of her four-footed friends, and will her body have enough to heat to warm up the little one? If my body should cool off and the baby have nothing to eat, he will start crying, she said quietly, as she came out of the water. His cry of despair may waken nature, or at least part of it, before the beginning of spring, and everything will be all right. They will nurse him. You read my thoughts? No, I just guessed you were thinking about that. That is quite natural. Anastasia, you said your relatives live close by. Would they be able to help you? They are very busy, and I must not take them away from their work. What are they busy with, Anastasia? What do you do all day long, when in fact you are so completely served by your natural environment? I keep busy, and I try to help people in your world, the ones you call dachniks, or gardeners. And this is chapter 10, Her Beloved Dachniks. Anastasia enthusiastically explained to me how many new opportunities could open up for people who communicate with plants. There were two major subjects she talked about, not only with particular excitement and animation, but I would have to admit, with a kind of love, namely bringing up children on one hand and dachniks on the other. According to everything she said about these people and the importance that she attached to them, we would all need to literally bow on our knees before them. Just think, according to her, that the dachniks have not only managed to save the whole nation from famine, but also sown seeds of good in people's hearts and are educating the society of the future. There are far too many points to enumerate here. One would need a whole book. And Anastasia kept on arguing, trying to demonstrate this. You see, the society you are living in today can learn a lot from communication with the plants to be found around dakas. Yes, I am talking about the dakas, where you personally know every individual plant in your garden, and not those huge impersonal fields cultivated by monstrous, senseless machines. People feel better when they are working in their daka plots. Many of them end up living longer. They become kinder. And it is these very dachniks that can pave the way for society to become aware of how destructive the technocratic path can be. Anastasia, whether that's true or not, for the time being beside the point, what is your role in all of this? What kind of help can you offer? Taking me by the arm, she led me over to the grass. We lay on our backs, the palms of our hands turned upward. Close your eyes. Let go. Try to picture yourself, what I am saying. Right now I'll take a look with my ray, and I will locate at a distance some of those people that you call dachniks. After a period of silence, she began to speak softly. An old woman is unwrapping a piece of cheesecloth in which cucumber seeds have been soaking. The seeds have already begun to develop quite a bit, and I can see little tiny sprouts. Now she has picked up a seed. I have just suggested to her that she should not soak the seeds so much. They will become deformed when they are planted. And this kind of water is not good for them. The seed will go bad. She thinks she herself must have guessed this, and that is partially true. I just helped her get just a bit. Now she will share her idea, and she will tell others about it. So that little deed is done. Anastasia told how she visualizes in her consciousness all sorts of situations involving work, recreation, and people's interactions, both with each other and also with plants. And when the situation she has visualized comes closest to reality, contact is established, whereby she can see the person and feel what that person is suffering or even sensing. She herself then, as it were, she steps into the image of the person and shares her knowledge with them. Anastasia said that plants react to people, to humans, with love or fear, and exercise a positive or negative influence on people's health. And here is where I have an enormous amount of work to do. I keep myself busy with the Dhaka garden plots. The Dakshniks travel out to their plots, their plantings. They are like their own children. But unfortunately, their relationship to them is still pretty much on the level of intuition. They still do not have the foundation that comes with a clear realization of the true purpose behind their relationship. Everything, but everything on earth, every blade of grass, every insect has been created for humans, and everything has its individual appointed task to perform in the service of humans. The multitude of medicinal plants are a confirmation of this. But people in your world know very little about how to benefit from the opportunities that they are presented with, about how to take full advantage of them. I asked Anastasia to show some concrete example of the benefits of conscious communication, an example that could be seen or verified in practice and subjected to scientific investigation. Anastasia thought for a little while and then suddenly brightened and explained. The Dakshniks, my beloved Dakshniks, they will prove it all. They will show what is true and confound all of your science. Now, how is it I did not think of that or understand it before? Some kind of brand new idea made her bubble over with joy. The whole time I was with her, not once did I see Anastasia sad. She can be serious, she can be thoughtful and concentrated, but more often than not, she was delighting in something. This time her joy literally bubbled over. She jumped up and clapped her hands, and it seemed to me as though the whole forest had become brighter and begun to stir, responding to her with the rustling of treetops, the singing of birds. Anastasia whirled round and round as though she were doing a kind of dance. Then, all radiant, she once again sat down beside me and said, "Now they will believe, all on account of them, my dear Dakshniks. They will explain, they will prove everything." Trying to bring her a little more quickly back to the topic of our interrupted conversation, I said, "Well, not necessarily. You say that every insect has been created for humans' benefit, but how can people believe that when they look with so much loathing on the cockroaches crawling all over their kitchen tables? What can it be that they too have been created for our benefit?" "Cockroaches," declared Anastasia, "will only crawl over a dirty table to collect the remains of any food particles lying around, particles too small for the human eye to see. They process them and render them harmless before discarding them in some secluded spot. If there are too many of them, simply bring a frog into the house, and the surplus cockroaches will disappear at once." When Anastasia went on to propose the Dakshniks will probably contradict the principle of the plant sciences, and will certainly contradict the commonly accepted methods of planting and cultivating various garden plot crops. Her affirmations, however, are so colossal that it seems to me they would be worth trying out for anyone with the opportunity to do so. Maybe not throughout their whole plot, but at least in one small section of it, especially since nothing harmful and only good can come of it. Besides, Much of what she told me has already been confirmed by the experiments of the biological science expert Mikhail Prokhorov. And it is 7 o'clock, top of the hour. I'm going to take a short break, and starting outside right now is a very big thunderstorm, lightning and thunder. So I'm hoping that it doesn't affect our power. And I will get back to you in 5 minutes with advice from Anastasia, chapter 11, the seed as physician or doctor. And I'll see you on the other side. Stick with me. And I'm back. I hope you are enjoying this amazing book. Advice from Anastasia, chapter 11. She's speaking now about the seeds as physicians. Every seed you plant contains within itself an enormous amount of information about the universe. Nothing made by human hands can compare with this information either in size or accuracy. Through the help of this data, the seed knows the exact time, down to the millisecond, when it is to come alive, when it is to grow, what juices it is to take from the earth, how to make use of the rays of the celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, and even the stars, what it is to grow into, what fruit to bring forth. These fruits are designed to sustain life more powerfully and effectively than any manufactured drug of the present or future. These fruits are capable of counteracting and withstanding any disease of the human body. But to this end, the seed must know about the human condition, so that during the maturation process it can satiate its fruit with the right correlation of substances to heal a specific individual of his disease, if indeed he has it or is prone to it. In order for the seed of a cucumber, a tomato, or any other plant grown in one's plot to have such information, the following steps are necessary. Before planting, put into your mouth one or more little seeds. Hold them in your mouth under the tongue for at least 9 minutes. Then place the seed between the palms of your hands and hold it there for about 30 seconds. During this time, it is important that you be standing barefoot on the spot of earth where you will later be planting that seed. Open your hands and carefully raise the seed which you are holding to your mouth. Then blow on it lightly, warming it with your breath, and the wee little seed will know everything that is within you. Then you need to hold it with your hands open about 30 seconds, presenting the seed to the celestial bodies, and the seed will determine the moment of its awakening. The planets will all help it and will give the sprouts the light they need to produce fruit, especially for you. After that, you may plant the seed in the ground. In no case should you water it right off, so as not to wash away the saliva which is now covering it, along with other information about you that the seed will take in. It can be watered 3 days after planting. The planting must be done on days appropriate to each vegetable. People already know this from the lunar calendar. In the absence of watering, a premature planting is not as harmful as an overdue planting. It is not a good idea to pull up all the weeds growing in the vicinity of the sprouts. At least one of each kind should be left in place. The weeds can be cut back. According to Anastasia, the seed is thus able to take in information about the person who plants it, and then during the cultivation of its fruit, it will pick up from the universe and the earth the optimum blend of energies needed for a given person. The weeds should not be disposed of completely, as they have their own appointed function. Some weeds serve to protect the plant from disease, while others give supplemental information. During the cultivation time, it is vital to communicate with the plant at least once during its growth period, and it is desirable to approach it and touch it during a full moon. Anastasia maintains that the fruit cultivated from the seed in this manner and consumed by the individual who cultivated it is capable not only of curing him of any diseases of the flesh whatsoever, but also of significantly retarding the aging process, rescuing him from harmful habits, tremendously increasing his mental abilities, and also giving him a sense of inner peace. The fruit will have the most effective influence when consumed no later than 3 days after harvesting. The above-mentioned steps should be taken with a variety of plant species in your garden plot. It is not necessary to plant a whole row of cucumbers, tomatoes, and so forth in this same manner. Just a few plants, seeds, is enough. The fruit of plants grown like this will be distinguished from other plants of the same species, not planted or planted in such haste. If analyzed, it will be seen that they are also distinct in terms of the substances that they contain. When planting the seedlings, it is important to soften the dirt in the excavated hole with one's fingers and bare toes, and spit into the hole. Responding to my question, why the feet, Anastasia explained that through perspiration from one's feet come substances, toxins no doubt, containing information about bodily diseases. This information is taken in by the seedlings. They transmit it to the fruit, which will thus be enabled to counteract disease. Anastasia recommended walking around the plot barefoot from time to time. What kind of plants should one cultivate? And Anastasia replied, the same variety that exists in most garden plots is quite sufficient. Raspberries, currants, gooseberries, cucumbers, tomatoes, wild strawberries, any kind of apple tree, sweet or sour cherries and flowers would be very good too. It does not make any difference how many plants of each kind there are or how big their area of cultivation is. There are a few definites without which it would be difficult to imagine a full energy microclimate, and one of these is sunflowers. There should also be 1.5 or 2 square meters of cereal grain like rye or wheat, for example, and be sure to leave an island of at least 2 square meters for wild growing herbs, ones that are not planted manually. If you have not left any of them growing around your dacha, you can bring in some turf from the forest and thereby create an island of natural growth. I asked Anastasia if it were necessary to plant these definites directly in the plot, if there were already some wild growing herbs close by, say just beyond the fence, and this is how she responded. It is not just the variety of plants that is significant, but also how they are planted. The direct communication with them that allows them to take in the information that they need. I have already told you about one of the methods of planting. That's the basic one. The important thing is to infuse the little patch of nature surrounding you with information about yourself. Only then will the healing effect and the life-giving support of your body be significantly higher than from the fruit alone. out in the natural wilds, as you call them, and nature really is not wild, by the way, it is just unfamiliar to you. There are a great many plants that can help us and cure all, and I do mean all existing diseases. These plants have been designed for that purpose, but humans has lost or almost lost the ability to identify them. I told Anastasia that we already have many specialized pharmacies which deal in healing herbs, just as there are many physicians and medicine men who make a profession out of herb treatments, and she replied, "The chief physician is your own body." Right from the start, it was endowed with the ability to know which herb should be used and when, how to eat, how to breathe. It is capable of warding off disease even before its outward manifestation, and nobody else can replace your body. For this is your personal physician, given individually to you by God, and personal only to you. I am telling you how to provide it with the opportunity to act beneficially on your behalf. If you make connections with the plants in your garden, they will take care of you and they will cure you. They will make the right diagnosis all by themselves and prepare the most effective medicine especially designed for you. Who gets stung by bees? In every garden there should be at least one colony of bees. I told Anastasia there are very few people in our society who can communicate with bees. Special training is required, and not everyone is successful. But she replied, "A lot of what you do to maintain bee colonies just gets in the way. Over the past centuries, there have been only 2 people on Earth who have come close to understanding this unique life form. And who might that be? They are 2 monks who have since been canonized. You can read them in your books. They can be found in many monastery archives." Come on now, Anastasia. You read church literature too? Where? When? You don't even have a single book. I have at my disposal a much more complete method of retrieving information. Well, what kind of method? Again, you're talking in circles. After all, you promised me you would not resort to any mysticism or fantasy. I shall tell you about it. I shall even try teaching this to you. You will not understand it right away, but it is simple and it is also natural. Well, okay, so how should bees be kept in a garden plot? All you have to do is build the same kind of hive for them they would have under natural conditions, and that is it. After that, the only thing required is to go to the hive and gather part of the honey, wax, and also other substances that are so useful for man. Anastasia, that's not simple at all. Who knows what that natural hive should look like? Now, if you could tell me how to do it myself with the materials we have at our disposal, then that might be something feasible. All right, she laughed. Then you will have to wait a bit. I need to visualize it first. I have to see what people in today's world might have on hand, as you say. And where should it be placed so as not to spoil the view, I added. I shall look into that too. She lay down on the grass as she always did, visualizing her, or rather, our living situations. But this time, I began to observe her carefully. As she lay on the grass, her arms were stretched out in different directions with palms upturned. Her fingers were partly curled, and their tips, specifically the tips of the 4 fingers on each hand, were also positioned so that their soft parts faced upward. Her fingers first began to stir a little, but then they stopped. Her eyes were closed. Her body was completely relaxed. Her face, too, appeared relaxed at first, but then a faint shadow of some kind of feeling or sensation moved across it. Later, she explained how seeing at a distance could be practiced by anyone with a particular kind of upbringing. About the beehive, Anastasia had the following to say. You need to make the hive in the shape of a hollow block. You can either take a log with a hole in it and hollow it out to enlarge the cavity, or use boards from a deciduous tree to make a long hollow box 120 centimeters long. The board should be no less than 6 centimeters thick, and the inside measurements of the cavity at least 40 by 40 centimeters. Triangular strips should be inserted into the corners from the inner surface's meat to make the cavity somewhat rounded. The strips can be just lightly glued in place, and the bees themselves will firm them up afterward. One end should be fully covered with a board of the same thickness, with a hinged panel at the other end. For this, the panel needs to be cut in such a way so that it fits neatly into the opening and sealed with grass or some kind of cloth covering the whole bottom. Make a slit or a series of slits to provide access for the bees along the bottom edge of one of the sides, approximately 1.5 centimeters wide, starting 30 centimeters from the hinged opening and continuing to the other end. This hive can be set on pilings anywhere in your garden, at least 20 to 25 centimeters off the ground, with the slits facing south. It is even better, however, to set it up under the roof of the house. Then people will not interfere with the bees flying out and will not be bothered by them. In this case, the hive should be aligned horizontally at a 20 to 30 degree angle, with the opening at the lower end. The hive could even be installed in your attic, providing there is proper ventilation, or even on the roof. Best of all, though, attach it to the south wall of your house, just under the eaves. The only thing is, you need to make sure that you have proper access to the hive, so you can remove the honeycomb. Otherwise, the hive should stand on a small platform with an overhead canopy to protect it from the sun, and can be wrapped with insulation in winter. I remarked to Anastasia that this type of hive could be rather heavy, and the platform and canopy might spoil the appearance of the house. What to do in that case? She looked at me, a little surprised, and then explained. The thing is that your beekeepers do not really go about it the right way. My grandfather told me about this. Beekeepers today have concocted a lot of different ways of constructing a hive, but all of them involve constant human intervention in its operation. They move the honeycomb frames around within the hive, or move both the hive and the bees to a different spot for the winter, and that is something they should not do. Bees build their honeycombs at a specific distance apart to facilitate both ventilation and defense against their enemies, and also any human intervention breaks down this system. Instead of spending their time gathering honey and raising offspring, the bees are obliged to fix what humans have broken. Under natural conditions, bees live in tree hollows and cope with any situation perfectly well on their own. I told you that they should be kept under conditions as close to their natural ones as possible. Their presence is extremely beneficial. They pollinate all the plants much more effectively than other agents, thereby increasing the yield, but you must know this pretty well already. What you may not know is that bees' mouths open up channels in the plants through which the plants take in supplemental information reflected by the planets. Information the plants and subsequently human beings do require. But bees sting people, don't you see? How can somebody get a good rest at a dacha if they're constantly afraid of being stung? Bees only sting when people act aggressively toward them, wave them off, or become afraid or irritated inside. Not necessarily at the bees, but just at anyone. The bees feel this and will not tolerate the rays of any dark feelings. Besides, they may attack those parts of the body where there are channels connecting with some diseased internal organ, or where the protective aura has been torn, and so forth. You know that bees are already effectively used in treating the diseases that you call radiculitis, but that is far from being the only thing that they can do. If I were to tell you about everything, especially showing the evidence you are asking for, you would have to spend not just 3 days, but many weeks with me. There is a lot written about bees in your world. All I have done is introduce a few correctives. But please, believe me, these are extremely important correctives. To establish a colony of bees in a hive like that is very easy. Before introducing a swarm of bees into the hive, put a little chunk of wax and some honey plant. You do not need to put in any handmade frames or cells. Afterward, when there are colonies established on even a few neighboring dacha plots, the bees will multiply all by themselves. And then as they swarm, they will occupy the empty hives. And how should the honey be gathered? You open the panel, you break off the hanging honeycomb, and extract the sealed honey and pollen. But don't be greedy. It is important to leave part of it for the bees for the winter. In fact, it is better not to collect any honey at all during your first year. Anastasia has adapted her morning routine to the conditions of the dacha plot. In the morning, preferably at sunrise, walk out to the garden barefoot and approach any plant that you like. You can touch them. This does not have to be done in accord with some sort of schedule or ritual to be strictly followed day after day, but simply as you feel moved or as you desire. But it should be done before washing. Then the plants will sense the fragrances of the substance emitted from your body through the pores of the skin during sleep. If it is warm and there is a small grassy patch close by, and it would be helpful if there were, by the way, lie down there and stretch out for 3 or 4 minutes. And if some little bug should happen to crawl onto your body during this time, do not chase it away. Many bugs open up pores on the human body and they cleanse them. As a rule, they open up the pores through which toxins are expelled, and all sorts of internal ailments are brought to the surface, allowing the person to then wash them away. If there is any pond water on the plot or on the land, you should immerse yourself in it. If not, Then you can pour water over yourself as you stand barefoot close to the plants and the seed beds, even better, between the beds. Or, for example, one morning alongside the raspberry bushes, the next by the currant bushes, and so forth. And after washing, you should not dry off right away. You should shake off the water drops from your hands, spreading them onto the surrounding plants, and use your hands to brush off the water from other parts of your body. After this, you can go through the usual procedures of washing and using any conveniences to which you are accustomed. In the evening, before going to bed, it is important to wash your feet using water with the addition of a small quantity, just a few drops of juice from a salt bush or nettles, or the two together. But no soap, no shampoo. After washing your feet, pour the water onto the seed beds, and then if necessary you can still wash your feet with soap. This evening routine is important for two reasons. As your feet perspire, toxins come to the surface, removing internal diseases from your body, and these must be washed away to cleanse your pores. Juices from nettles are good at facilitating this process. In pouring the remaining water onto the seed beds, you are giving supplemental information to the plants and the microorganisms about your current state of well-being. This is very important. Only after receiving this information can our visible and invisible environment work out and pick up from the universe and the earth everything it needs for the normal functioning of your body. I was still interested in knowing what Anastasia had to say about food. After all, she has a rather unique dietary regime, and so I asked, Anastasia, tell me how you think a person should feed himself. What should he eat? How often during the day, and in what amounts? Our world pays a great deal of attention to this question. There's a huge quantity of all sorts of literature on this subject, health food recipes, advice on losing weight. It is difficult to picture human beings' lifestyle any other way under the circumstances currently imposed by the technocratic world. The dark forces are constantly trying to take the natural operating system of this world, the one given to humanity right from the beginning, and substitute their own cumbersome artificial system which goes against human nature. I asked Anastasia to put it in more concrete terms without her philosophical musings, and she continued, You know, these questions of yours as to what, when, and how much a person should eat, they are best answered by the individual's own body. The sensations of hunger and thirst are designed to send a signal to each particular individual, indicating when he should take in food. This precise moment is the right one for each person. The world of technocracy, or technology, being incapable of affording each individual the opportunity of satisfying his hunger and thirst at the moment desired by his body, has tried to force him into its own schedule based on nothing but this world's own helplessness, and then attempts to justify this compulsion in the name of some sort of efficiency. Just think. One person spends half the day sitting down, expending hardly any energy, while another exerts himself with some kind of physical labor, or simply runs and perspires all over, thereby using up many times more energy, and yet both are expected to eat at exactly the same time. A person should take in food at the moment advised by his body, and there can be no other advisor. I realize that under your world's conditions, this is practically impossible. But the opportunity does exist for people at their dakas, their gardens with their attached garden plots, and they should take advantage of it and forget about their unnatural, artificial regimes. The same applies to your second question. What should one eat? The answer is whatever is available at the moment, whatever is on hand, so to speak. The body itself will select what it needs. I could offer you a bit of non-traditional advice. If you have a household pet, like a cat or a dog, keep track of its movements carefully. Occasionally it will find something in the way of grasses or even herbs to eat. You should tear off a few samples of whatever it selects and add it to your diet. This is not something you have to do every day. Once or twice a week is sufficient. You should also take it upon yourself to gather some cereal grain and thresh it, grind it into flour, and then use the flour to bake bread. This is extremely important. Anyone consuming this bread, even once or twice a year, will build up a store of energy capable of awakening his inner spiritual powers, not only calming his soul, but also exerting a beneficial influence on his physical condition. This bread can be shared with relatives and close friends. If shared with sincerity and love, it will have quite a beneficial influence on them as well. It is very helpful to each individual's health to spend 3 days, at least once each summer, eating only what is grown in his garden, along with bread, sunflower oil, and just a pinch of salt. I have already described Anastasia's own eating habits. While she was telling me all this, she would unwittingly tear off a blade of grass or two, put it in her mouth and chew it, and even offer me some. I decided to give it a try. I can't say the taste was anything to write home about, but neither did it provoke any sense of distaste. It seems as though Anastasia has left the whole task of nourishment and life support up to nature. She never allows it to interrupt her train of thought, which is always busy with some more important issue. Even so, her health is remarkable as her outward beauty, of which it is inseparable. According to Anastasia, anyone who has established a relationship with the earth and the plants on their own land has the opportunity of ridding their body of absolutely every kind of disease. Disease per se is the result of humans distancing himself from the natural systems that were designed to take care of his health and give life support. For such systems, the task of counteracting any disease presents no problem whatever, since this is their whole reason for being. However, the benefits experienced by people who have set up such information exchange contacts with a little patch of the natural world go far beyond dealing with diseases. Chapter 12. Sleeping under one's star. I have already mentioned how animated Anastasia becomes when talking about plants and people who communicate with them. I thought that living in nature as she did, she might have studied nature alone, but she also possesses information about planetary relationships. She literally feels the celestial bodies. See for yourself what she has to say about sleeping under the stars. Once plants have received information about a specific person, they embark upon an information exchange with cosmic forces. But here, they simply intermediaries carrying out narrowly focused tasks involving one's fleshly body and certain emotional planes. They never touch the complex processes which, out of all the animal and plant world on the planet, are inherent only in the human brain and on human planes of existence. Nevertheless, this information exchange they establish allows man to do what he alone can do, namely interact with the intelligence of the universe, or more precisely, to exchange information with this intelligence. An altogether simple procedure permits him not only to do this, but also to feel the beneficial effect of such an interaction. Anastasia described this procedure as follows. Choose an evening when weather conditions are favorable and arrange to spend the night under the stars. You should situate your sleeping place close to raspberry or currant bushes or to beds where cereal seeds have been planted, and you should be there alone. As you lie with your face to the stars, do not close your eyes right away. Let your gaze physically and mentally wander across the celestial bodies. Do not become tense while thinking about them. Your thought must be free and unencumbered. First, try to think about those celestial bodies which are visible to your eye. Then you can dream about what you treasure in life, about the people closest to you, people for whom you wish only good. Do not attempt to even think at this point about seeking revenge or even wishing evil upon anyone, for that might have a negative effect upon you. This uncomplicated procedure will awaken some of the many little cells dormant in your brain, the vast majority of which never awake even once during a person's lifetime. The cosmic forces will be with you and help you attain the realization of your brightest and most unimaginable dreams. They will help you find peace in your heart. They will establish positive relationships with your loved ones and increase or call into being their love for you. It is useful to try repeating this procedure a number of times. It is effective only when carrying out at the location of your constant contact with the plant world, and you will feel it yourself as early as the next morning. It is especially important to go through this procedure on the eve of your birthday. To explain how all this works would take too long right now, and it's not important. Parts of the explanation you would not believe, and other parts you would not understand. It can be discussed much more quickly and easily with people who are already trying it and feeling its influence on themselves, since the information, once received and then verified, will actually facilitate the reception of any information that follows. And Chapter 13, A Helper and Mentor for Your Child. Asking Anastasia how a plot of ground with seed plantings, even plantings carried out in a special manner she described and maintaining close contact with humans, could actually facilitate the raising of children, I expected to hear an answer something like, children need to be imbued with a love of nature. However, I was wrong. What she actually said was amazing, both in its simplicity of argument and in the depth of its philosophical implications. Nature and the mind of the universe have seen to it that every new human is born a sovereign, a king, a queen. They are like angels, pure and undefiled. Through the still, soft upper part of his head, he takes in a huge flood of information from the universe. The abilities inherent in each newborn are such as to allow them to become the wisest creatures in the universe, to become godlike. It takes him very little time to bestow grace and happiness upon his parents during this period, amounting to no more than 9 earth years. The child becomes aware of what constitutes creation and the meaning of human existence, and everything the child needs to accomplish this already exists. Only the parents should not distort the genuine natural structure of creation by cutting the child off from the most perfect works in the universe. The world of technocracy, however, does not allow parents to do the right thing. What does an infant see with his first conscious glance? He sees the ceiling, the edge of his crib, patches of fabric and the walls, all attributes and values of the artificial world created by a technocratic society. And in this world he finds his mother and her breasts. This must be the way things are, the child concludes. His smiling parents offer him toys and other objects that rattle and squeak as though they were priceless treasures. Why? He will spend a long time trying to make sense of this rattling and squeaking. He will try to comprehend them both through his conscious mind and his subconscious. And then these same smiling parents will try wrapping him up in some kind of fabric which he finds most uncomfortable. He will make attempts to free himself, but all in vain. And the only means of protest he has is at his disposal is his cry, a cry of protest, an appeal for help, a cry of rebellion. And from that moment on, this angel and sovereign becomes an indigent slave begging for handouts. One after another, the child is presented with the accoutrements of an artificial world. He is rewarded for his acceptance by some new toy or item of clothing, and along with this the thought is drummed into him that these are the dominant objects in the world where he has arrived. Still in infancy, despite the status as the most perfect being in the universe, the child is pandered to and treated as an imperfect creature, even in those institutions you consider educational, where again he is constantly reminded of the values of the artificial world. Not until the age of 9 does he hear a passing mention of the existence of the world of nature, and then only as an adjunct to that other, more important world of manufactured objects. And most people are never afforded the opportunity to become aware of the truth, even to the end of their days. And so it seems as though the simple question, what is the meaning of life, goes unanswered. The meaning of life. That is to be found in truth, joy, and love. A 9-year-old child brought up in the natural world has a far more accurate perception of creation than all the scientific institutions of your world, or indeed many of your prominent scholars. Stop, Anastasia. You probably have in mind a knowledge of nature, assuming his life proceeds along the same line as yours. Here I can agree with you, but think Today's human is obliged, rightly or wrongly, that is another question, but he is obliged to live specifically in our technocratic world, as you call it. Someone brought up as you propose will certainly know nature and having a feeling for it, but in everything else he will be an utter ignoramus. Besides, there are only sciences like mathematics, physics, chemistry, or simple just knowing about life and its societal manifestations. For someone who has learnt at the right time about what constitutes creation, those things are mere trifles. If he wants or considers it necessary to prove himself in some scientific field, he will easily surpass all others. Well, how could that happen so quickly? Man in the world of technocracy has never yet invented anything that is not already present in nature. Even the most perfect manufactured devices are but a poor imitation of what already exists in nature. Well, that may be, but you promised to explain how a child could be raised and his capabilities developed in our conditions. Only talk about this in a way I can understand. Use concrete examples. I shall try to be more concrete, replied Anastasia. I have already visualized situations like this and have tried to hint to one family what they should do, only there was no way they could have grasped the crucial point and asked their child the proper questions. These parents turned out to have an unusually pure, talented child who could have brought tremendous benefit to people living on Earth. So these parents arrive with this 3-year-old child at their DACA plot and bring along his favorite toys, artificial toys, which displace the true priorities of the universe. Or if only they had not done that. Just think, the child could have been occupied and entertained with something far more interesting than senseless and even harmful interaction with manufactured objects. First of all, you should ask him to help you. Only ask him in all seriousness, without any pandering, especially since he will actually be able to help. If you do any planting, for example, ask him to hold the seeds in preparation for sowing, or rake out the seed beds. Ask your child to put a seed into the hole that you have prepared, and in the process, talk to him about what you are doing. Something like this. We will be putting the little seed into the ground, and we will be covering it with earth. When the sun in the sky shines and warms the earth, that little seed will get warm and start to grow. It will want to see the sun, and a little shoot will poke its head out of the earth, just like this one. At this point, you can show him some little blade of grass. If the seed likes the sunshine, it will grow bigger and bigger, and maybe turn into a tree or something smaller, like a flower. And I wanted to bring you tasty fruit, and you will eat it if you like it. The little shoot will prepare its fruit for you. Whenever you arrive with your child at your DACA plot, or when he awakes first thing in the morning, have him look and see whether any new shoots have come up. If you should notice one, show your delight. Even when you are putting young plants rather than seeds into the ground, it is important to explain to your child exactly what you are doing. If you are planting tomato seedlings, for example, let him hand you the stalks one by one, and if a stalk should inadvertently break, take the broken stalk in your hands and say, I do not think this one will live or bear fruit, since it is broken, but let us try planting it anyway, and plant at least one of the broken ones right along with the others. A few days later, when you visit the seedbed again with your child and the stalks have firmed up, point out the broken, withering stalk to your little one and remind him that it was broken during the planting. But do not use any preaching tone of voice. You need to talk with him as an equal. You should bear in mind the thought that he is superior to you in some respects, in his purity of his thought. He is an angel. If you succeed in understanding that, you can then proceed intuitively, and your child will indeed become a person who will happify your days. Whenever you sleep under the stars, take your child with you. Lay him down beside you and let him look at the stars. But under no circumstances tell him the names of the planets or how you perceive their origin and their function, since this is something you do not really know yourself, and the theory stored in your brain will only lead the child astray from truth. His subconscious knows the truth, and it will penetrate his consciousness all by itself. All you need to do is to tell him that you like looking at the shining stars and ask your child which star he likes best of all. In general, it is very important to know how to ask your child questions. The next year, you can offer your child his own seedbed, fix it up, and give him the freedom to do whatever he likes. Do not ever compel him by force to do anything with it, and do not correct what he has done. You can simply ask him what he likes, and you can offer help, but only after asking his permission to work alongside him. When you are planting cereal grains, have him throw some grains on your seedbed. Okay, I remarked to Anastasia, still not fully convinced. Maybe a child like this will show interest in the plant world, and maybe he'll become a good agronomist, but where is he going to get knowledge from in other areas? What do you mean, where from? It is not just a matter of having a knowledge and feeling about what grows and how. The main thing is that the child is starting to think. Yes, the child will analyze, and cells are awakening in his brain, which will operate throughout his life. They will make him brighter and more talented, compared to those whose corresponding cells are still dormant. As far as civilized life goes, what you call progress, he may well turn out to be superior in any field of endeavor, all the more so since the purity of his thought will make him an exceptionally happy person. In contrast, he has established with his planets will allow him to constantly take it in and also exchange more and more information. The incoming messages will be received by his subconscious and transmitted to his consciousness in the form of many new thoughts and many new discoveries. And outwardly, he will look like everyone else, but inwardly, this is the kind of human you call a genius. And with that, I'm heading for chapter 14, but I don't have time to continue because it's just 1 minute before the top of the hour. But the next chapter 14 is about the forest school. You know, I really like the idea here about how she's guiding him about children and the wise. Already children are wise. Already they are born with the wisdom. And it quickly becomes lost or corrupted or confusing because of the intrusions. And don't take it outside and don't know, you know, in indigenous way, First Nations way, that little one infant is brought outside immediately to see the moon and then to see the stars, to breathe the air, the natural air, and to smell, to feel, and to hear the winds and all of creation, because that is our original relation, our connection. So I like what she's saying here about not pressuring little children to become something is all everyone expects them to become. So we'll continue next week and entering into the forest school. And I hope you enjoyed this. I'm enjoying it a lot. And I'll see you next week, next Wednesday. It will be June 7th. And thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Doksha. Okay.